What's going on, everybody? Blazing here. Welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. And Plarium's put out some buffs on two champions. And I mean, one, okay, I can see him definitely getting some use. The other one, no, there's still. So the two champions in particular that are getting a buff. One is Norog, who is a skinwalker, has been in the game for so long. Actually, most of the iconically classic commercials feature him, right? And for such a cool champion, for such a cool looking champion, back in the day used to actually be pretty solid. But his buff, I mean, honestly, you know what? Let's just break it down and let's take a look at the changes that they've made. And then I'm going to show you guys why I think this is an absolute shit buff. Okay, so let's take a look at the differences of what they're putting in, right? On the A1, it is a single target, has a 55% chance of decreasing the duration of all buffs by 1 turn. Okay, cool. We get a 55% chance. I think it books up. I'm not sure. His current skill does take a couple of books, and it gives you a 20% boost, so it might boost up to 75%. Current A1, that's not bad. Honestly, though, if it was an AoE, it would make it so much better, right? The has an 80% chance of placing a block active skills debuff for 1 turn. Books up again. I'm guessing because it does have a 20% booking on it, so it books up to 100. That is decent. But here's the thing: that A1 isn't really going to be used anywhere, right? If it was an AoE, you'd be able to use it in Hydra no problem, right? Put out some counterattack accessory on him, and then have that chance to decrease the duration of any buff. So that would be pretty good there. The A2. Now, the A2 here, I mean, we have Ugo that basically does the same thing. And look, guys, when you're doing an epic versus a legendary champion, yes, they're not in the same faction, but legendary books, epic books, two totally different, and one is way easier to get than the other one. So would I say that I would build Norog for the A2 here? Absolutely not. So the A2 here, what they're basically changing is places a block buffs and block decreased defense for 2 turns. It's on a 4-turn cooldown. First of all, let's go back to Ugo. Okay, so if we're gonna talk just for Hydra itself on this, if you have him, Ugo's books down to a 3-turn cooldown. Norog's still stays at a 4-turn. What the hell? He's a legendary champion. You're not changing anything too much on the skill kit. Just give it extra, just give it the extra CD. It's not going to kill you. Again, I would seriously just pick Ugo over him no matter what. And Ugo brings a heal or a leech on the A1, so you'd be able to get some healing back. But you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the passive saves it all up, right? So the passive used to be is immune to stun, freeze, and sleep. And now he's going to be any hard CC, including sheep and petrification. Here's the thing. He is not a PvP champ. In this current arena meta, he's not going to do a lot for you, right? Especially because his multipliers suck. And to give you a comparison, let's take a look at Rosin here, right? Just to show you guys, Rosin's on his A2, which is a single target, is a 6 multiplier. And on his A3, which is an AoE, right, it is 4. And Rosin's been in the game for almost as long as Norog has. Norog, on his A1, right, which is a single target, is a 4. And on his A3, or his A2, sorry, which is an AoE on a 4-turn cooldown, is a 3.8. Now, again, back to Rosin here. Rosin actually has a 60% chance of removing the buff, right? Because he's got a triple hitter, so 1 out of those 3 hits, you got a better shot at removing it from him, from anybody else. and he will definitely put more damage on there. So looking at the Norog buff here, I think it's absolute shit. And is this going to entice me to build him? Absolutely not. Not even like, maybe if I've got him on like one of my 10 alt accounts, I might consider building him just to test him out and see how bad it is. But overall, like, this is not a buff. I don't know what the hell Plarium was thinking. Okay, so Gallas is getting a buff both on the main and the alternate form. On his A2 and his A3, they're not touching the A1, they're leaving that alone. And then they're doing some alterations on the passives. So let's take a look here. The A2 on form 1, on his base form, all they're basically doing here is increasing the multiplier. So currently on the A2, his multiplier on his baseline form is a 3.9. Again, we were just looking at Norog, and Norog was like a 3.8. So if you're going to buff this mythical champions, you really should have buffed Norogs as well too. So I don't know. I'm hoping that they're buffing it to at least at a 4.5. It's an AoE, right? If we look at a Laz, just as a comparison, his is at a 4.2. So I'd expect to at least try to get that much. I'd love to see at least that much, more towards a 4.5, but would that be too much? Let me know. Okay, so the A3 again on the base form restores all allies destroyed max HP, which it already does. Basically, all they changed here is giving them an extra turn, which is great because you get to go back into the A2. So anything that they do with that basically just means a cooldown reduction. So it's not great, but it's not bad, right? You buff and then you get to go again. So it's again, you go from A3 into the A2. So for the passive, what they're basically doing is they're giving him a heal. Here's the thing. How about instead of that, you do what you did for the cat, right? The Shire cat, and give him a block damage for 1 turn on maybe like a 3-turn cooldown. I think that would be better as opposed to this, because unless you're running an unkillable, correct me if I'm wrong, he's going to reflect the damage and then get healed. Depending on how much the damage is, he might just die. Okay, so as for the second form, they are changing some things. Is it going to make him meta changing? No, but it is definitely going to make him usable, right? If I pull him, I would definitely think about working his second form over his first form, and could possibly be a contender with my Alas, maybe. Now, what are we going to do with the A2 here? Attacks all enemies before attacking, places a 60% decreased defense for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be resisted, so you definitely do not eat accuracy for this, which is definitely huge, right? Because it is irresistible, right? So as long as it's irresistible and we can place it, we don't need to build accuracy. We don't have to worry about putting too many stats on him. He's not going to be stat hungry. And then they're increasing the multiplier. So his current multiplier for his alternate form on the A2 is currently a 4.2. So again, this would have to be increased to at least a 4.4, 4.5. His current actually on his A3 is a 4.4. So I would love to see it much higher than that. I'm interested to see how high they're going to get it, because he is a forced champion. And, is going to be... he's going to have some problems in Arena. Now, moving to the A3, attacks all enemies. And what they're changing here is it basically now gives you a damage boost whether you have buffs or don't have buffs, right? So we'll ignore 20% of the target's defense if they have no buffs, and we'll ignore block damage. This is a straight counter to not Allah, sorry. Well, actually, it is a counter to Allah's, and it is a counter both to him and to Siegfried, and I hate Siegfried. Now, as we already stated before, the multiplier is a 4.4, so they're gonna buff the multiplier for this, and I'm curious to see by how much, because this could possibly be the highest defense multiplier that they're gonna put up. I think I want to say Solus is like a 5, I think. Sorry, he's a 4.9. So they could be buffing it up to that high. Although, if, again, Solus is a 4.9, I'd expect to see better from a mythical. And then last but not least, which I think is actually pretty significant, they're changing the whole passive, right? And now he's going to be immune to any hard CCs, which is great to see, including sheep, right? So no wand on him. We don't need to put a wand on him. Also randomly resets the cooldown of any one of his champion skills whenever they kill an enemy. It occurs once per skill. So this, again, basically only works on the A1, A2, A3, and you only get one time on it, right? So if you kill everybody at one time, that's it. It'll be useful for Arena. I like it. I think his second form got the better buff out of the two. Honestly, if I pulled him, I wouldn't be too upset about it right now. Now, I did talk to Bick briefly while he's been on hiatus. Hopefully he's doing well. I know his girlfriend got a surgery, so best of luck and quick recovery to her, because we want you back, brother. You know, the one thing he said that I definitely agree with, that decreases the duration of all enemy buffs by 2 turns, still requires accuracy. This, if you're going to make it so that the decreased defense here is unresistible, you should really make it the same way here. Maybe even by just 1 turn, you should still make it irresistible here. That's it. You guys let me know in the comments down below, who do you want the next champion to be buffed? Do you agree with any of these buffs that they're doing? I think Norog got the shit end of the stick. Gallas got a pretty decent one. I wouldn't be that upset if I pulled him again. That's it. Again, Norog, man, come on. Come on, Plarium. Join us every Sunday, 2 p.m. EST for the Knights of Plarium podcast, where we dive into the world of Raid Shadow Legends, discussing everything from free-to-play strategies to pay-to-win insight, and covering the journey from early to mid-game. Whether you're a newbie or a seasoned player, we have something for everyone. Don't miss out on the Knights of Plarium podcast, the only podcast for Raid Shadow Legends. As always, much love, much appreciation. Be safe, be well, be good to each other, and I'll catch you guys next time.